Tom, what are the keys? What needs to happen for you to win tomorrow?
Well, there's no question on the defensive end, it starts with the ball screen defense. There's no question about that because they utilize it so much and so many things that happen inside of a possession for them either begin or end with a ball screen or both. So you have to do a great job there. But the other thing is they're a very well-balanced team. And you can't ever get away from not only what Trey Burke does, but what Tim Hardaway Jr. does. I mean, sometimes it's astonishing to me the lack of attention that kid gets. And a young man, I should say, he's not a kid. I mean, he's been such a big part, such an integral part of bringing their program back to where it is. And he's a very, very dangerous opponent because he does things on both ends of the court. So you can't let him get going. I mean, Nick Stauskas shooting the ball at a really high rate. I mean, we've got to go in there and defend the three. So keep staying on point with your question. It's the ball screen defense. We've got to do a great job on the three. And I think the thing that's big, and it's been huge for us because it's been, when we've played really well, we've been pretty good at it. And in 2 of the last 3 games, we haven't been so good at it. And that's the rebound. We just can't give extended possessions to them and extra possessions to them. And then offensively, we've got to make sure that our foot's on the gas pedal. I mean, we really do. And at times the other night in the Ohio State game, we didn't keep our foot on the gas pedal the way that it needed to be, especially after they scored. You know, we've been very good at scoring and coming right back, and it's on the road especially, and we didn't do it as well at home. And that's the big thing. And then there's other keys inside of this. We've got to be very diligent in the half court. We've just had somebody just literally in the scout team sliding around the court, just looking for anybody that they could draw a charge on. Just sliding under, getting under them, falling early, because that's what we're going to deal with. It just is what it is. And so the worst thing we can do, and I think they had to see it on film to really absorb what we're talking about. And I know they did. I mean, there's always little games within the game, and we've got to make sure that we don't, we just got to play. We've got to slide. We've got to take a pull-up. We've got to make the next pass. We want to play fast, but we don't need to be in a situation where people are sliding into us and all of a sudden the whistle blows and we didn't think they were going to do it. So those type of things are important in it. So those are the biggest keys.
Jay Billis said the other day on PTI he thought the only time you guys were ever vulnerable was against really physical teams. Do you think that's a fair assessment?
I respect what Jay says in a lot of areas, but I would say you have to go to both Michigan State games, the Minnesota game here, Ohio State there. Those were pretty physical games. I don't think we've always played our best in those games, but we've also had some very good games that were very physical. The game at Ohio State, physicality-wise, and the game at Michigan State were as physical as any we've played in to this point. But there's no question that we've got to be, where it's showing up right now, I don't think I wouldn't just put it on the physicality, because the physicality a lot of times doesn't have a lot to do with your lack of offensive rebounding. We got to rebound the ball better. And this last week, we have not rebounded it the way we need to, even in the win over Iowa. So that's a big thing. Now, some of that defensive rebounding, absolutely, because if you look at our percentages, especially over the last few games, they're not bad at all defensively. I mean, it's three-point defense. They get skewed because we're giving up offensive boards. So in that sense, we've got to be more physical, more aggressive, make the first contact better, more consistently. And then with that, our guards have to rebound better. Our guards haven't rebounded as well in a couple of these games.
This team has done a good job moving forward after your losses. How have they practiced since Tuesday?
We practiced well. Yeah, we practiced very well. And there's a sense of urgency. Not just because we've lost, not just because it's Michigan, but because they know they can play better. So, and that's really what it is. They've always been good with that.
Obviously, you know.
There's really not a lot of choice if there wasn't. I mean, it's really, they are. So, I mean, immature teams, you have to deal with that. This team, we've never had to deal with that.
Obviously, I mean, you go through season planning for this. You've taken practices down a little bit in terms of time and stuff like that. But do you have any concern about fatigue lately?
No, not physical fatigue. And if you saw our practices, you know what I'm saying. Not the physical fatigue. I think the grind of the season is like I look at it this way with our team right now. We're not having as bad as stretches as we're having some pockets that aren't so good. It's a difference. You know, stretches are like ruts you can't get out of. You know, we really haven't been in that situation. There's been a couple pockets, and because these games are so, because the teams are so good in this league, plays get magnified. You know, like it's really easy for us to go, for me to look at it and say 56-50 the other night, and we've got two veterans in a situation on a pick and roll, you know, with Deshaun Thomas in that we're switching it, and we don't switch it, and Deshaun Thomas hits a three, it's 59-50. You know, those are the kind of, those little pockets. You're never going to play great. The other team's got something to do with that. But there's no question over a long season that the mental fatigue of it kicks in, and everybody goes through it, because the word grind is overused a lot of times and understood, you know, or misunderstood. I mean, there's a lot that goes into this. These guys have worked so hard to be in this position, and you know, we've talked for many, many years, you know, about cutting down nets and the symbolism of that. And they've worked so hard through this body of work to get to that point. And that's the reason that we did it the other night and didn't do it in practice. And you know, we could have come back and done it in a practice, but you know what? They've earned it. And so that you want them to keep understanding, you know, nobody was happy, nobody was excited. Heck, we had to go chase Tim Garl down, and he's got his gray t-shirt on. He comes out to cut the net. He doesn't even take a strip. You know, I mean, there's a guy that, you know, let's add to your collection. You've got more hardware than any of us. But I get all that. But the symbolism is, okay, you're always taking steps and you're moving forward. That was a step to get to that point. But now we can't sit back on it. And it's all about continuing to go. And you've got to keep the game fresh. Our guys spend a lot of extra time in the gym. And so that, and with that being said, you don't have to practice as long. And we don't. We tapered this back. I know I've said this before, but we tapered this back far earlier than I ever have as a coach, as a head coach. And it was in a little bit past mid-January. So, no, I watched this practice. We're not physically fatigued.
Could it be mentally refreshing for this team now have basically a series of one-game seasons, because you have this regular season finishing up and then you get into tournament mode?
That's the plan. You know, and how it carries out goes forward. I mean, we're playing to, you know, there's a certain amount of, you're playing the other team. You know, you're playing to make sure you're better. You're playing against the game sometimes, and I mean, and we've done really well going into hostile environments this year, as judged by the road record, and really well. And there's been a lot of hostile environments, a lot of really tough environments. I mean, Purdue's one of the tougher environments you can go into. I mean, obviously Michigan State, Ohio State. I mean, in Minnesota. I mean, we didn't do as well in there, but our guys are good with that. I mean, they've really mentally put themselves in the right spot for those things.
What does it mean for you as a coach and for the program to go from playing baseball players to having two finalists for a Wooden Award?
That's it. I think JD hit me with that this morning. That says a lot because the program has just continued to grow. Each one of those guys, like the other guys on the team, has had their own growth process. One came in with a lot of attention and has only gotten better, and the intentions increased. You know, especially looking at, you know, what his offseason was, and the other one wasn't getting any of that attention whatsoever. Wasn't even on the list early, right?
No.
Yeah, I mean, it just worked his way in, and I would hope that would speak volumes about the program. You come in here and you really get after it, and you absorb it, and you spend that extra time on it, and you put your academics at a high place, and you put being a teammate in a really serious place, and you got a good, strong personality, and you embrace this. You can do a lot of great things here, and I think it says a lot. But I also hope Eric Arnett keeps moving up in the Brewers organization too. Not to mention Kim Schutz, since you brought it up.
You mentioned Burke a little bit earlier. Obviously, he's played really well, you know, recently, and you know, has been all year. But is there anything? What have you seen from him lately? What's he just kind of doing to take it up a notch?
Reading the ball screen, reading the different things he sees in the ball screens so well. Great example of him. End of half here, we're playing with Will Sheehan, who's one of the more stellar defenders around, and he's guarding him, and he's up into him, and shot clock winds down, and he takes that step back and he hits that bomb three at the end of the half. Now, could Will have gotten his hands up just a little bit quicker? Yeah, but I mean, there's a height difference there, but that's the kind of presence he has. You give him a little bit of space. I mean, a little bit of space. He's good enough to make those plays. And I think that just continues to go. But everybody has their, you know, their ebbs and flows of the season, every player, every team, and what I see on film from him is that he just continues to play with, you know, with a high level of confidence, and he's never afraid to take the big shot, to make the play that he needs to make, and the thing about reading the ball screens, he just keeps getting better with that.
They've obviously not lost up there. There's some teams, I think, that are more confident in certain things at home than they are on the road. Did they do anything different? Is there anything that they're more confident in or likely to go to?
That crowd's pretty good. Like all crowds now, ever since they moved those students down like they do at Michigan State, that's been a pretty tough environment since I've been back in the Big Ten. You know, Michigan State hadn't lost too many at home. They hadn't lost Indiana since none of these kids were born, unless it was Jordan Hulls. I mean, it's every day is a new day. So we don't spend a lot of time. We wouldn't have known about that streak if Don Fisher, I wouldn't have known about it if Don Fisher hadn't mentioned it the night before when we were shooting. You know, I wouldn't even know. So I think they'll play with a lot of energy there. It'll be a great environment. It'll be hostile. And our guys have done pretty well with that. Everybody's ready to go. I mean, I know I am personally, and I think they are too.
Can you talk about Jeremy Hollowell? It seems like you've been getting a lot more production.
Because his work ethic just continues to grow. Not just his practice work ethic, but his extra work ethic and his extra time, his off-day work. I mean, that's the thing. You know, when a guy like that just continues to feel it and that passion starts to burn and he wants to prove something and he wants to be on that court, and he'll play early tomorrow. I mean, there's no doubt about it, barring anything unforeseen. And he just continues to improve. Hunter Perea is improving. It just hasn't been in the game situation yet, but that's not far away from happening either. I mean, they're getting better. They're going against what I keep trying to convince those guys of every day. You're going against really good players here, the kind of players and the kind of situation that Christian didn't have, Jordan didn't have, Derek didn't have. For the most part, Victor and Will didn't have as much of that. You know, it was daily going against really good players. So they had to do their thing. They had to learn and practice and then make the mistakes on the court and grow through it and all those different things. Well, these guys, the opportunity is not there as much yet, but it's certainly going to be, and they're going to be that much more prepared for it as it comes. But Hollowell is really getting better.
I know you would have loved to have beaten Ohio State, but does it seem appropriate that you guys are taking the hard road to an outright championship given the history?
Well, I thought about that with the seniors. You know, nothing's been easy for them. And that hit me about 3:30 in the morning. I haven't really said that to them, but nothing about this has been easy. Going on the road this year has not been easy. Building this up, obviously, for them has not been easy. I don't know if we really, you're probably right. I don't think anybody in here, you may want it easy from time to time, but I don't think there's anybody that's been built in this program and that's come up in this program really knows what to do with easy, if that makes any sense. And that's why you just got to continue to stay locked in. And the trick now is to make sure that they're really as confident that they've earned confidence here. I mean, they've earned, now every day is different, obviously, and every game is different, but they've earned the right to be confident. Nobody's earned a right to have expectations or to be entitled. And that doesn't work. That's not how this program was recruited. That's not how it's come up. But they've earned the right to have the confidence to go and feel like they're good enough to go do what they want to do. We just got to make sure that we're doing it, and we got to do a couple things like the rebounding. We were a little loose with the ball handling the other night. You know, those are the kind of things we can take care of. We can control how much harder we're blocking out. We can't control when guys are sliding in front of us in the drive and what the referee's going to call. But we can control if we're rebounding. We can control if we're screening. We can control if we're communicating our pick and roll coverages and, you know, those kind of things. I tell them all the time, I mean, their concentration is only as good as their communication. I mean, and that's on the court, and that's where it comes from. You know, you can't be so locked in that you don't talk, and you can't talk without purpose. I mean, they go hand in hand. And we've been pretty good at understanding that. Anything else? Yeah, thanks for waiting.
Thanks, Tom.
Yep.
Tim, is there anything that you've seen in the last 2 out of 3 games, any common threads in the losses that would concern you? Or
I don't know if I would say concern as much as in watching a lot of Big Ten games as you prepare for conference games, there are winning moments in every game. And I think that being able to make those plays at those times show which team ends up winning and which team ends up on the short end. And in the majority of our games in the Big Ten, we've been able to make those plays when it was time to make them. And in these last couple, we haven't been able to do that. And when you play against really good teams and really good talent, it's hard to overcome that when you make a mistake and then you aren't able to capitalize on the other end.
I guess the players, but this grind of the Big Ten and with basically teams eating each other and beating each other up, how much does that leave a team prepared for the tournament when that time runs around?
I don't look at it as a grind at all. All the arenas are full. There's a lot of pageantry, there's a lot of excitement, and you get to play the best against the best. And the teams that are really desperate are playing at a high level, and I think that's what you want to compete against. You don't want anybody to be down. You want to play them when they're at their best, because then when you beat them, or if you have the opportunity to beat them, you feel really good about how you're playing. I would say that the game will probably be more freer, if that makes any sense, in the NCAA tournament or in the postseason, because there isn't the same kind of familiarity. When you get into league play, no matter what league it is, the Atlantic Sun, the Mid-American Conference, the Horizon League, the Big Ten, the ACC, everybody knows what you're going to do and how you're going to do it, and I think you have to have a different bag of tricks sometimes to win those games or make those plays, and people are very good in this league at preparation and then carrying out that preparation.
This team has done a good job of bouncing back from every loss this year. How have they practiced since Tuesday?
We don't bounce back, we move forward. And that's been our theme, and that's what we're going to continue to do. I think that our team recognizes when we don't play to our abilities, and when we come back in the next day, whether it's a win or it's a loss, we feel like that's a good day to improve. One of the things that Coach does a terrific job of throughout the season is focusing on the fundamentals of the game throughout the year, as well as the individual improvement, and there's always some of that within our practice plan. I would say that our intensity and our talk was very good the past few days in practice, which it needed to get better at anyway, but that was probably more of a marked improvement on anything that I've seen maybe in the last week or so.
Tim, in order to beat Michigan, what are the keys? What has to happen to beat that team for a second time?
You've got to take care of the basketball. We've got to get stops, and we've got to get rebounds. We've got to do a really good job in transition. They're a team a lot like us that on a missed shot or a turnover, they can turn it into a basket on the other end of the floor. And when I talk about transition defense, I don't just mean that you've got to get your point guard back and then you're set. You got to get all 5 guys back, because you've got to stop them from going downhill. And they're a team that changes ends of the floor very quickly.
How was, I guess, McGarry developed? I think the game here was kind of maybe one of the first where he really took on a leading role, and it seems like his minutes, his production have gone up since then. I mean, just kind of how has maybe he changed as an inside presence for them next to Jordan Morgan?
Well, he was a very highly ranked player coming in, so you knew that he had some abilities. He probably had more opportunities, and he needed to expand his role a little bit more, because at that time Jordan Morgan wasn't full go, and I think Jordan only went 2 minutes against us when they were here. So I think it gave him an opportunity to play to his abilities, and I'm sure that they talked with him about expecting more from him in the games, and he'd probably been showing that to them in practice, which gave them confidence to go ahead and let him play.
Other than just the confidence that comes with playing at home, is there any different way that Michigan operates at home that they haven't lost there? I guess, is there anything that they do, are more confident in, or anything like that that explains, I guess, why they've been that good at home?
I think all the really good teams in college basketball are really good at home, and at the same time they're pretty good on the road as well. And I think if you're going to be a really good team, you have to look at every game the same, no matter what building it's in. And the last time we played them, we made the plays we needed to make, and maybe they weren't able to hit the shots or keep us off the offensive boards, or it was Cody's 50-50 ball at the end of the game that really helped us, run more clock and get back to the free throw line. And sometimes they break that way, sometimes they don't. And I think if we play the way we're capable of playing, it doesn't matter where we play. We have an opportunity to beat anybody we play, and I would say the same thing about Michigan.
Is that 50-50 ball from Cody in that first game, was that kind of one of those winning moments that you guys have focused on and wanted to see more of lately?
No question. And we've had those, and we've done those things. It's just that in the games that you lose, I think they get magnified maybe a little bit more. You know, you look back at Ohio State, and maybe it's a finish in the paint, and you get that bucket, and then you get back, and you get a stop with Kraft at the end of the shot clock, and he makes the play that he makes, and hits that shot, and then we missed our switch, you know, with Deshaun, and Deshaun hits the big three, and so we've had those situations throughout the year too, and you want to try to limit giving those good teams those kinds of opportunities, and because they're a good team, they took full advantage of it, and we've got to know when our moments are too, and that's why you've got to play every possession, because you never know when that moment is. It's very easy to look back on it and say, this was the moment where we won the game, but you don't know when that's going to happen while you're playing the game. So as soon as they throw the ball up until the final buzzer, you've got to play every single one of those possessions.
Do you have a good teaching tool with that? With the end of the Illinois game, there was just a mental hiccup with that ended up costing you the game. Is that a good teaching tool that you've been able to bring forward?
Without question, yeah. I think, you know, one of the things we always try to talk about with inbound situations, we'll have our team, you know, where we'll say, first team ready. Let's make sure we body up, we're ready to go. And those are good reminders and things that you get better at and you pay more attention to maybe when you've gotten burned on it. And so each and every game we learn from those things. And sometimes when you win a game, you can be even harder on certain areas of the game because everybody's feeling pretty good, but you got to make sure that you don't lose your edge as you get ready to go into that next game.
Would have, you know, Burke was obviously playing well before you guys played him the first time, but he's obviously been huge in the last couple. What have you just seen from him lately, just what's, you know, made him as good as he's been in the last few games?
I don't see anything different with him. I think he's a really good player. He came to Michigan as a really good player, and he's continued to develop and grow. I would say the one area that I think he's as good at as anybody is he kind of sees the floor and he anticipates very well as to what the next play should be. And that's why he has the ball in his hands quite a bit, because he makes pretty good decisions. And he can also make good shots, and he can make tough shots. If you watch all of his shots, it's not like they're wide open. Sometimes he has to create space with a step back, or he has to try to cross you over to get an angle and those types of things. So he's a very good player who's very aware out there on the floor.
Is he one of those players when you defend him, it's almost not a matter of stopping him as it is just trying to make him less efficient, I guess, because he is just so good at manufacturing looks? And
that's exactly how I would say it. There's no question about that. You've got to make him work, and you can't give him anything easy because he is going to make some tough shots, and he's going to make plays when they need to be made.
Anything else for Tim?